Alright, my friends, I've got some fun charts here for you, and we're going to be looking at what's going on in the Tampa, Sarasota, Lakeland, Orlando, Sebring market, because the number one question everybody always asks me when they see me is, hey David, what's going on in the market? Friends, family, people that I meet who find out I'm in real estate, that's always the first question everyone has. So we're going to break this down for you in very simple and easy to understand charts. And at the end of this video, you'll know everything that's been going on this quarter, this year, and for the last 20 years. So let's jump in. So right here on this graph, I'm going to break it down and explain to you the overview so you understand what all these numbers mean. But this is for Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater. And way down here at the bottom, we've got the years from 2003 all the way up to 2023. And you can see that each year how much properties have either appreciated, green, or depreciated, red. So the U.S. government keeps track each year of how much properties are selling for, how much appraisal they're being appraised for, gather all that information, and this is the information that we come up with. So you can see in 2003, prices were going up. Then of course, 2006, they hit their peak. 2007, they started going down to 2011. Then after that, they started going back up again, with the biggest increases being 2021 and 2022, with those crazy market jumps with everybody moving to Florida, right? So 2021, property values increased 26.3%. 2022, they increased 15.4%. They were headed on up, but because interest rates going up, of course, that kind of slowed things down. So you can see in our fourth quarter of 2022, the end of last year, they started dropping. And then, of course, the first quarter of 2023, they were still low, which is actually interesting because that's going to vary between other markets that we look at. But here you can see 2022, they dropped a little bit. 23, they dropped a little bit. Now they're coming back up again. So this 1% here isn't that it's increased 1%, it's just it went down and now it's come back up past that 1% mark again, up another 1%. So still going strong, even though we had a little bit of a setback, but the market overall in Tampa is pretty strong. So you can see we've had a 237.4% increase since 2003 over the last 20 years. So you'll see how that fluctuates for each of these markets that we're going to be looking at. Overall, the average annual appreciation, 6.6%. So let me just show you here on the map. So right now we're looking here, if you're not from Florida, we're looking at Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, right? So here's the Tampa Bay. And Tampa's on this side of the bay, St. Pete and Clearwater on this side. So that includes kind of all this area up in here. Then we're going to be looking at Lakeland. We're going to be looking at Orlando. We're going to be looking down here at Avon Park and Sebring, and then over here in Sarasota. So across the central Florida area is what we're looking at here in these maps. So moving on to Sarasota, which is down here. I think that'll be interesting for you to see. I've actually been going down to Sarasota. We've got a house that is for sale down there. And so I've been showing that to a couple of people here recently. And this is what we're seeing in Sarasota. So they're actually the ones who kind of brought this up to me. Hey, David, what's been going on in the market? Have property values increased that much? And then I saw this chart and I was like, this is good. So as you can see, overall the chart pretty much follows the same pattern. It didn't increase as much over the past 20 years, right? Only 211% compared to our 237 for Tampa, but pretty much same general pattern. Went up, depreciated, and in 2011 started going up. We see 2021, 2022, we've got those same large increases. But the interesting thing here is this year, it's actually gone down 2.4%. And interestingly enough, you'll see that's all happened in this second quarter, which compared to Tampa is the exact opposite, right? In Tampa, when interest rates went down at the end of last year, or went up at the end of last year, prices kind of fell a little bit for the last quarter of 2022, first quarter of this year, while in Sarasota they held strong, right? And then this quarter, while prices in the second quarter, while they went up in Tampa, in Sarasota they're going down. So a little bit of a shift there, just that market difference. But the reason I point that out is just so you see that, doesn't mean every place is the exact same thing. Every market has its own little differences. So we're looking in general at these cities, but when you get into specific neighborhoods, things change a little bit. So if you want to know what's going on in your exact neighborhood, or values of your home because you're thinking about possibly selling, or you want to refinance, then hit me up. Be happy to go over all these numbers with you. This is fun stuff. So continuing on here, the 6.6% that we saw in Tampa, it was a 6.7% annual appreciation in Sarasota. So even though it didn't increase as much, interestingly enough, the average is a little bit higher, most likely probably because of these depreciations here from where it started. So, those are the main differences. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here. We'll move over towards Lakeland, which is showing you on the map here, if I can find that. Lakeland is right here between Tampa and Orlando. So we looked at Tampa, we looked at Sarasota, Bradenton, Northport area. Now we're moving over to Lakeland. So let's pull our handy dandy chart back up. Lakeland, over the past 20 years, pretty much the same pattern, 200.2%. So you see it went up, went down, going back up again, those same two large gaps. But interestingly enough, while Sarasota's going down and Tampa went up just a hair, only 1%, Lakeland's actually going up 3.5%. So by quarter, we see that at the end of 2022, the went down a little bit, depreciated, but ever since the beginning of the year, Lakeland has been holding strong. And this is interesting because, there's a lot of new construction going on over in Lakeland. It's growing. While here in Tampa, you can't really build out into the Gulf to the west, so you got to go east, and you can't go south into the Tampa Bay, so you got to go north. So all those master plan communities, new construction, all those big builders are building all over. So everywhere I drive around, I see lots of new construction going on. And if you're following along on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever, no, you won't see me dancing, but you will see a lot of houses that we're taking pictures of, videoing. So if you aren't following us there, make sure to follow along, because you'll see a lot of those home tours that we're doing, and you can see and follow along with what's going on. So I think that's one of the reasons why there's still so much growth here, why it's so strong in Lakeland. So it's actually gone up a lot more than Sarasota. So let's just jump over here to compare. So pay attention to this number, 3.5, and you'll see the only time they actually went down here was at the end of 2022. So here in Tampa, right, we actually had 2 quarters where we depreciated, and it only went up 1% there. In Sarasota, it held strong there, but it went down now, and it's actually dropped, whereas Lakeland, it's of these 3 markets we've looked at so far, is the strongest. So average annual appreciation, 4.6%. So it's still, I'm not going to say a smaller city, of course. Tampa's a metropolis, right? So it's a combination of a lot of cities. So Lakeland isn't as big, but with Tampa pushing out that way and Orlando coming in this way, there's a lot of growth happening right there in that central area. So let's take a look at Orlando, and we'll pull this up so you can see this is the Orlando area here. So Disney parks are right down here in this area, SeaWorld, Universal, it's all kind of down in here. So a lot of builders, master plan communities, the Airbnbs, if you're an investor looking in those areas, this is a great location. They're actually communities because Orlando is pretty strict on their Airbnb laws, as is Sarasota and Clearwater. So if you're planning on Airbnb, you just want to make sure anywhere, obviously, you want to know what the regulations are, but they're pretty strict. But in Orlando, right here along this area, and that's why I pointed out Davenport area is typically where those Airbnbs are going to be, close to the parks. And there are some builders that focus specifically on building homes only for investors to host Airbnb communities. So you can't buy these homes, and these are huge, right? They're like 5, 6, 8, 10 bedrooms, and you can't buy them to live there. You can only rent them out as short-term rentals. And I've got some videos that I did. I haven't actually finished editing them yet to upload them, but those will be coming up soon. And you'll see massive houses, 10 bedrooms. A lot of them are suites with their own bedrooms, so you can take like whole families, people traveling from abroad that want a place to stay. And you can get them fairly cheaply. I've seen them like $250 a night, depending on the time, right? And, you know, throw 20, 30 people in there. And it's not cheap, but relative to the amount of people, if you've got a big group coming. So a lot of people are looking to rent these kind of places, and builders are building these properties specifically with this short-term rental in mind, and they're built around water parks and golf, mini putt golf things. So it's pretty cool. So anyways, all that being said, if you're interested in investing, that's kind of the hot spot right there. If you're looking for flips, here in the Tampa area, around where we're at, so right here around Seminole Heights, which is kind of this section right here where my mouse is at, up here in Holiday between Tarpon and Newport Ridge is a hot spot for investors, and down here in St. Pete. So that's kind of like where those old neighborhoods, not old neighborhoods, but those rundown neighborhoods where you can still buy those rundown houses really cheap, fix them up and flip them. A lot of investors are getting into those kind of places, or just, not even to flip, to actually buy them cheap, fix them up, and then rent them out. Or even not fix them up sometimes. Sometimes they just buy them and rent them out, Everybody wants to rent. And so if you're looking into investing, those are great areas to look at here in the area. But with no further ado, let's jump into our Orlando report. So this is actually the weakest of all the reports we've seen so far in our 20-year increase, right? Only 196.8%, but still same general pattern, right? Up, down, and then up again with the big two increases, jumps right here in 2021, 2022. This year, it's only gone up almost, just over 0.5%, 0.6%, and it held strong at the end of 2022. It dropped at the beginning of this year, and it's going back up now. So this quarter it actually increased 3.25%, but because of the decrease here, it's only showing a 0.6%. Of course, we're only seeing the first 2 quarters. We're finishing up our 3rd quarter now at the end of September, so then we'll see that report come out in a couple of weeks, and then the end of the year we've still got a lot of potential for growth. And then we'll jump into our Sebring and Avon Park, and don't do a whole lot down here. A lot of people are looking in these areas, this whole kind of area from Clearwater coming across the Gulf to Bay Boulevard, across I-4 all the way up through Lakeland into Orlando. This is kind of where all the construction's going on, and then up here into Spring Hill, Brooksville this way. Not a whole lot. I mean, obviously, when I say not a whole lot, that's just means relative to all that's going on in here. But I have been getting activity requests from people who live down in these areas for home valuation reports and market analysis. So that's just why I point that out here. So if you're interested in that area, this is the report for you. Here we go. So Sebring and Avon Park is the weakest over the 20-year growth, but you'll see it's actually our strongest, which is really interesting here in our current 2023 year and for our 2 quarters. So you'll see what's going on there. So again, same pattern, up and then down and then back up again with those big jumps here. But they had some really strong jumps here, and they're really going strong right now in 2023. So you see their average annual appreciation is 5.5%. And right now, just with the first 2 quarters, they've practically already hit that 5.2. So they're just, 0.3 of a point shy of hitting their annual growth. And we'll see what happens over the next 6 months. So this may be an interesting area to keep your eye on. But anyways, they only had a really small drop right here at the end of 2022, which is probably why, they didn't have a whole lot to make up. They're just, boom, they just kept shooting straight on up. And that's pretty much it, my friends. So I will briefly go through these. So you can pause them if you want. If you want copies of those reports, let me know. I can send them to you. Be happy to share them with you. Again, these are citywide, right? So if you want to know what's going on specifically in your neighborhood, or you want to know what's going on with home values in your neighborhood, let me know. We can show you what's sold, what's pending under contract, what's currently on the market, and then show you what your odds are of selling compared to what hasn't sold. So there's some pretty cool reports that we can share with you, and then show you how much your property value is worth if you're thinking of selling, how much you could get for it in its current condition if you fix it up, and what those values would be. Or if you're just looking to refinance, you're not going to get your full home value on a refinance, because the bank's only going to give you 70-80% of what your home's worth. But that'll kind of give you an idea of what you could potentially get if that's something you're thinking of doing. So I think these are some really interesting trends here. It's been fun watching this over the past couple of years, especially right here when interest rates started going up, right? So a lot of buyers, market cooled off a little bit because the buyer slowed down. I remember at the end of last year, I was working with some investors they're looking for a very specific kind of house. They had their buy box was very specific. They had a lot of different criteria. Size-wise, it was really big. I'm trying to remember all the details. But anyways, we found a house. We got it under contract. We're going through the inspection period. And right about that time, interest rates started going up. And everybody was unsure what the market was going to do. And they backed out of that deal. And, of course, now looking back in hindsight, if they had gone ahead and gotten it, it was a great deal. I mean, it was a huge house. It was super, super cheap. And, they would have made a killing off it, especially with their game plan, with what they were doing and their strategy. But anyways, they didn't get it. Somebody else probably picked it up. And I'll have to go back and see what happened to that. That would be fun. I have the agent's number who was working with a seller at that time. And we had several good conversations. So I'll have to hit him up and see what happened to that. But anyways, the reason I bring up that story is just that what happened in the market was because interest rates went up. Buyers, like the ones I was working with, kind of backed off, slowed down, and they weren't sure what the market was going to do. And that did drive, demand down a little bit. But because all of the sellers had really low refinance rates locked in, they didn't want to sell anymore, right? So they locked in their interest rates at 2-3%, and now with interest rates up at 6-7%, nobody wants to sell their house with a really good interest rate and buy something else at a high interest rate. So the sellers aren't selling. So that's kind of why the market's held strong and keeps increasing, even though demand from buyers went down, but the amount of inventory on the market has gone down also. And so that's been interesting to watch. So over the past, probably since 2019 or so, when I started working with title companies and lenders as a closing agent, I've probably done over 1,350 some odd closings working with buyers or sellers, homeowners, sometimes not even buying or selling, just refinancing. And we did a lot of refinances. Probably say 2019, 2020, I probably did maybe just straight refinances, 300. Whereas the last year or so, I can probably count on one hand how many refinance transactions I've closed or helped somebody closed on. So that's just what's going on, just to help you understand what's going on with the market as far as why, even though interest rates are going up, why demand has still held strong and why these markets are still growing. So we'll see what happens here over the next 6 months to the end of the year. Stay posted. We'll keep you updated with what's going on in the market. And again, if you have any questions at all, again, about your specific neighborhood, your specific market, if we didn't cover these, even though, video's already at 20 minutes, so I didn't want to do all of the markets in Florida, but we have access to those reports. We'd be happy to share those with you, along with your specific neighborhood, your home values. So just hit me up. Hey, Dave, what's going on in my neighborhood? What's going on in my market? We can chat. My number's down there in the descriptions. You can DM me. Hit me up. If you're old school, you still like to use your phone, or text me, or whatever. Send the carrier pigeon. We're here. We'll be happy to talk with you about the market, what's going on in your specific situation. So that's about it, my friends. Can't think of anything else, obviously. You may have questions, so feel free to leave them in the comments below or hit me up, and I look forward to chatting with you about these later.